Well friends, today we will discuss about biodiversity and environment. First of all, we should know the biodiversity. What is biodiversity? Biodiversity refers to rich and diverse energy of living organisms of all species, the genes they contain and the ecosystem they constitute. Biological diversity means the variability among living organisms from all the sources including inter alia, terrestrial, marine and other aquatic ecosystem and the ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes diversity within species, between species and the ecosystem. In general, biodiversity is considered at three levels. First is genetic diversity, second is species and diversity and third is ecosystem diversity. First, genetic diversity means the variation of genes between different populations of a species as well as between species. The second, species or organismal diversity refers to the variety of living species. Then third one is ecosystem biodiversity, relates to the variety of habitats, biotic communities and ecological process and the enormous diversity present within ecosystem in terms of habitat differences and the variety of ecological processes. The importance of biodiversity, the biodiversity is recognized as the most important natural resources. It directly and indirectly influences the regulate the functioning of the other natural resources of soil, water and air in the ecosystem. Humans derive all of their food, almost 40% of their medicines and industrial products from the wild and domesticated components of biological diversity. The impact of human being on biodiversity, the human beings interventions can alter biodiversity directly and indirectly through changes in land, water and atmosphere. Human impact is greater than that of most of natural processes that lead to a decline in the biodiversity. The most significant human impact on biodiversity and also the earliest was the domesticating of plants and animals for food, which started more than 10,000 years ago. The root cause of human induced biodiversity loss is actually the manner in which human society functions in the present global context with respect to the natural resources, trade and economic systems and human and social values. The human activities change biological diversity globally in two fundamental ways. First is by affecting a global dynamic system such as atmosphere directly, and second is through the collective consequences of individual effects in various places and at various times, building up to globally significant impact. For instance, global warming is due to direct excessive emission of greenhouse gases from burning fossil fuels as well as to the cumulative effect of deforestation, land clearance and faulty agricultural practices in various parts of the world. Reduction in biodiversity and its ecological implications, the truly irreversible nature of the loss of species and genetic diversity is the most serious cause of concern for human beings. This high intensity of rate of human interventions increase the threat of a decrease in species population, which can eventually lead to their extinction. A decline in biodiversity can result in a perceptible deficiency in the quality and amount of ecological services provided by the nature. Overexploitation of both natural and man-made resources such as timber extraction from natural forest and overutilization of crop lands can lead to the disruption of ecosystem services and increased cost. The importance of agricultural biodiversity takes into account the first is recycling of nutrients, control of microclimate, regulation of local hydrological processes, detoxification of waste and toxic chemicals, regulation of the abundance of desirable and undesirable organisms, soil structure, infiltration and runoff, soil erosions, natural pest and disease control, pollution and genetic introgression and hybridization. The agricultural intensification affected the biodiversity in such a way. Agricultural activities have three types of impacts on biodiversity. First one is they alter the characteristics of natural ecosystem and their constituent species. They impact the species and genetic variability of this chosen cultivated species themselves and their non-food components. The effect on and of form non-food biodiversity through such adverse physiochemical effects as erosion, salinization and pesticide pollution. The magnitude of these impacts varies with the intensity of the intervention. Pollution pressure and the concomitant decline in per capita land availability have made productivity oriented, chemically intensive, high yielding variety, monoculture and irrigated agriculture unavoidable in large parts of the world. This has caused an incalculable loss of biodiversity both on and off farm and all the levels. Thus, modern agriculture has evolved as a major threat to biodiversity in general and to diversity of importance to agriculture itself. Impact of biodiversity reduction on modern agriculture system. The products of plant origin make up 93% of the human diet and 3000 species are regularly exploited for food. However, modern agriculture has drastically shrunk the vast food basket provided by the nature and put to us by human over thousands of years. Only 103 species contribute 90% of the world's plant food supply. Just 3 crops, rice, wheat and maize account for 90% of the calories and 56% of the proteins people derive from plants. The other thousands of species contribute the remaining 10% of the plant food supply, though they have considerable importance in the diet of poor people confined to more isolated areas. Genetic erosion consists of the loss of genes, gene complexes and unique combinations of genes that occur in different land. The primary cause of the loss of genetic diversity of the widely used plant crops and vegetables is the widespread adoption of a limited number of modern varieties that are generally bred for high yield, resistant to insect pests and diseases, and high performance over a range of biological environment, thus reducing the need for specific local adaptation. Further, advanced methods of cultivation using fertilizers, irrigation, pest control, chemicals have lowered the demand for land races, which have evolved largely through careful selection and area adapted to marginal growing conditions. Without a rich reserve of varietal diversity, long-term sustainability and food security and livelihood for poor farmers in complex, diverse and risk-prone areas will be jeopardized. Modern agriculture production practices have created tensions related to different aspects of agricultural biodiversity, such as severe reduction in the number of species of food plants cultivated, loss of genetic diversity of the presently cultivated crops and vegetables, destabilization of pest species in agroecosystems, deficiency in biobiodiversity and erosion of cultural diversity, loss of indigenous knowledge of traditional farming systems and environmental degradation. Thus, the immense potential of soil biodiversity for agricultural productivity and sustainability is still unrevealed and needs to be understood and harnessed. The environmental pollution. The major environmental problem today is global warming or climatic change due to accumulation of several gases, the carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide, chlorofluorocarbons, along with water vapor in the atmosphere causing greenhouse effect and depletion of ozone layer in stratosphere, affecting the several aspects of humanity on planet Earth. Greenhouse effect. What is the greenhouse effect? The earth receives energy from the sun which warms the earth's surface. As this energy passes through the atmosphere, a certain percentage, about 30%, gets scattered. Some part of this energy is reflected back into the atmosphere from the land and the ocean surface. The rest 70% actually remains behind the heat and earth. In order to establish a balance, therefore, the earth must radiate some energy back into the atmosphere. As the earth is much cooler than the sun, it does not emit energy as visible light. It emits through infrared or thermal radiation. However, certain gases in the atmosphere form a sort of blanket around the earth and absorb some of the energy emitted back into the atmosphere. Without this blanket effect, the earth would be around 30 degrees centigrade colder than it normally is. These gases like carbon dioxide, methane and nitrous oxide along with water vapor comprise less than 1% of the atmosphere. They are called greenhouse gases, as their working principle is same as that which occurs in a greenhouse. Just as the glass of the greenhouse prevents the radiation of excess energy, this gas blanket absorbs some of the energy emitted by the earth and keeps temperature level intact. This effect was first recognized by a French scientist, Jean-Baptiste Fourier, who pointed out the similarity in with what happens in the atmosphere and in greenhouse. Hence the term the greenhouse effect is coined. The greenhouse effect is essentially a positive life-giving process that maintains the earth temperature at level and tolerable by its life forms. This gas blanket has been in place ever since the creation of the earth. Since the industrial revolution, human activities have been realizing more and more of these greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This leads to the blanket becoming thicker and upset the natural greenhouse effect. Activities that generate greenhouse gases are called source, and those that remove them are known as sink. A balance between source and sink maintains the levels of this. Humankind upset this balance when new sources and interfere with the natural sinks are introduced. Carbon dioxide is released when we burn such fuels as coal, oil and natural gases. In addition, when we destroy forest, the carbon stored in trees escapes as carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Increasing agriculture activities, changes in land use pattern and other sources lead to rising levels of carbon dioxide, methane and nitrous oxide. Industrial process also release artificial and new greenhouse gases like chlorofluorocarbons. The resulting enhanced greenhouse effect is more commonly referred to as global warming or climate change. Potential effect of greenhouse effect or global warming. As per US Climate Action Forum reported, some potential effects on agriculture and other associated with climate change are biomass production, decrease in productivity of crops and grazing land directly through changes in temperature and precipitation, frequency of droughts, floods and directly though changes in soil quality, pests and diseases, shift in ecological zones. Alteration in the species diversity and dieback of tropical forest and grasslands due to change in pattern of rainfall. Decline in soil quality, it is due to change in soil structure, increased soil color crusting and compaction, accelerated soil erosion, leaching and acidification, salinization and organic carbon decline and nutrient depletion. Air quality, increased dust concentration, greenhouse gases, industrial pollution, etc. affects the quality of air. Water resources and quality, warmer climate will change rainfall and snowfall patterns, leading to increased droughts and floods, melting of glaciers and polar ice sheets, resulting in accelerated sea level rise affecting freshwater resources, coastal agriculture, fisheries and aquaculture, forest, natural ecological system, human and settlements, loss of land due to inundation and erosion, soil water intrusion, increased sediment land load, eutrophication, etc. In general, warmer and wetter climate will favor the growth and spread of vector-borne diseases like malaria and dengue affecting human health. Increased frequency of storm and other extreme event causes decrease in hydropower and like this. Depletion of ozone layer. The Earth's atmosphere is made of numerous gases. In 1983, CS7 first discovered the presence of ozone molecules in the central part of the atmosphere between altitude of 15 to 35 kilometers from ground level in this stratosphere, and that it absorbed the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. The ozone layer, by absorbing the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun, determines the temperature structure of the stratosphere and safeguard life on the planet. It is believed that for millions of years the atmospheric compensation but not undergone must change. However, in the past half century, humans have upset the delicate balance of nature by releasing into the atmosphere harmful chemicals that are gradually destroying the life protecting layer. The World Meteorological Organization has played a major role in identifying problem of ozone depletion, and United Nations Environment Program initiated the Vienna Convention that major objective to reduce the greenhouse gases effect on land, and chlorofluorocarbon is said to be one of the main gas responsible for the depletion of ozone layer. It should be cut short. Another wide use of chemical that is create on the ozone layer is methyl bromide. It is also used as a pesticide, and it is also hazardous for the ozone layer. It has to be clearly stated that expected recovery of the ozone layer would have been impossible without the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer, which called for phased reduction of all ozone depleting substances. Methane emission from rice fields. Wetland rice fields have recently been identified as a major source of atmospheric methane. Methane is produced as the terminal step of the anaerobic breakdown of organic matter in wetland rice soils. In a natural wetland, flooding a rice field cuts off oxygen supply from the atmosphere to the soil, which result in anaerobic fermentation of soil organic matter. Methane is a major end product of anaerobic fermentation. It is released from submerged soil to the atmosphere by diffusion and evolution and through roots and stems of rice plant. Recent global estimates of emission rates from a wetland rice field range from 20 to 100 teragram per year. The current burden of methane is in the atmosphere is approximately 4,700 teragram per year. The conditions favoring methane production and emission in rice field is anaerobic conditions, disturbance of wetland soils and use of organic amendments, application of chemical fertilizers. The mitigation options are prevention of submergence of rice fields wherever feasible without affecting the rice productivity, growing rice cultivators having traits with low methane emission potential, use of sulfate containing fertilizer resources, methane emission reduces methane emission. These are the measures for containing the methane in rice fields, and this is all about biodiversity and environment. Well friends, if you have further more queries, please visit website of Manage and contact to Manage people for further queries. Thank you very much.